Good evening and welcome to our July installment of Antioch West Live. Thank you for joining us, those who are watching us live tonight, and thank you for those that might be tuning in and watching us at a later date. I'm excited. If you watched last month, we had, so far we've been doing this now for the last number of months, and last month we had an amazing time sharing the stories of the people that are sitting next to me, and it was so impactful to so many of you that were watching, and friends and coworkers and neighbors that reached out, and tremendous testimonies that came from last month, that we have decided to bring these beautiful people back for part two to discuss a little more about their journey, and also to try to help you in your journey, and also towards the end help you as you may help somebody else that's on their own journey of loss and grief. So thank you again for joining us tonight. We're so glad you're here. And more importantly, thank you, Debbie and Liz and John, for coming back and being a part the second time. I roped you in the first time, and then I had to re-rope you in again the second time, but I'm glad you did it and taking time out and being with us tonight. And I know so many people reached out to me and had so many amazing testimonies of being inspired and ministered to and touched by all of your stories and your transparency. And it was a tremendous blessing. So thank you again for being back with us tonight. But for those of you that maybe have no idea what we're talking about when we did this in June, briefly, let's go back and introduce to you who we have tonight. Debbie Owens and Liz Johnson and John Smith is here, and each one of them has a journey and a story that they have dealt with loss in their life. And just a brief recap, if you want to hear more about their story and their journey, you can go back and hear the whole thing last month and watch that. But just quickly here, for those of you that may not know, Debbie, give us just a quick recap again of your grief story and why you're here tonight.
7 years ago, I lost my daughter unexpectedly, and my whole life was turned upside down. And I'd like to share a little bit with you tonight on how I got through that.
Good. Awesome. Liz?
In December of 2000, I lost my dad suddenly. And then through the years, I've lost my brother and my sister and also an aunt and uncle to a genetic heart condition that runs in my family.
And again, your daughter was suddenly, all of
Very
those was suddenly. Mm-hmm. And then, John, your story.
Believe it or not, today is July 16th, 31 years ago, July 16th, 1987.
Wow.
A wife, 3 daughters, 5.5 months pregnant, were killed in an accident which changed my life, started a change.
31 years ago. Wow. So, obviously, if you heard, these stories are tremendously impactful. And again, I encourage you, go back to last month and you can hear, and they got a chance, and we'll get into a little bit of tonight, but get into a little in depth of sort of the details of the stories, and they elaborated a little greater the last time. But for time's sake tonight, we're going to jump back into a little bit where we left off. It was amazing last time we did this. We had a tremendous time. We had about an hour together, and when the cameras finally turned off, we were all standing around and talk. All of a sudden, all this amazing stuff started happening while we were talking after it was all done, and we were like, oh, we wish we could have got this on camera. Well, the Lord knew that, and so we're back here again. And Liz, last time you made a statement that really stuck out to me, and I'm sure for some that were watching, and you made a statement about not minimizing your grief. Is that correct? Is that what you said?
Yes.
You don't minimize your grief, because it's really difficult for someone like me. I'm sitting here, I've lost grandparents, but I've never really lost in a way that is as tragic as this, and I'm sitting here and I really look at myself and go, what do I have to complain about? Here's people that have been through tons of pain. But when Liz said that, it impacted me, honestly, Liz, when you said that, the fact of, if I compare myself to any of you, I feel like a total loser that I am. I'm just completely, what do I have to complain about? But to know that I've got stuff in my life I'm going through, And it doesn't make it any easier to go through it just because you've been through stuff that comparing it is harder. But then when we said all that, after we're done, John, you told a story about your brother and a burn. Tell that story again for those that are watching tonight, because I love that story.
As I was in the hospital, my brother was at his house. He was cooking. He was frying some chicken, and he said some grease popped out and burned him on his hand, and he was really paying attention to it and how much that hurt in that little small spot. Then he realized, it came to his realization of, this is a spot that's smaller than an eraser on a pencil. Mm. And that hurt. So what was I going through? And what was I dealing with? And then he realized, then he came to want to minimize, as you're saying, what he was dealing with, because he knew what I was still going through.
And remember, you said something you said to him. I think you said to him eventually.
I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel when the grease popped on his hand. I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
When he stumped his toe getting out of bed, I didn't feel it.
Yeah.
What you go through is perfectly designed for you to go through. Some people, it only takes a spot of grease on the hand. Others, they may have to go through third-degree burns.
Yeah.
To get your attention.
So if you're watching tonight, or maybe you went back and you watched last week or last month, and it was hard for you to relate because you're like, man, I've never been through anything like this. You're going through something. There's something in your life right now, whether it is a small spot of grease or maybe it's something larger. We all are dealing with stuff in our life. We've all dealt with some level of loss, whether it wasn't a loss of a family member, it was loss of a dream, a loss of some kind of vision that we had for our life that hasn't quite turned out that way. You can't minimize that. And hopefully tonight, as we continue to talk, and as we did last time, somewhere in this, as they talk about their own journey, you'll be able to see in your own life how you can let God help you, even though you may not be able to relate exactly to what they're going through. Debbie, you said something just a few minutes ago, and last time we talked, you really shared a lot of important kind of benchmarks along. I think you said one thing that stood out to me: 2 years. You lived in shock for 2 solid years of waiting. But then you said something in the intro there just a few minutes ago. As you've had 30 days to kind of, it's been about 30 days since we did this the last time, and you've obviously, I'm sure you've thought about what you said and things you wish you would have said. And you made the statement, you know what, you want to talk about some things that got through. Over the last month, as you've reflected on what we said the last time, what stands out to you that really you feel like, as someone sitting there tonight watching, that they could really relate to?
One of the things that stood out to me is the fact that I sat here 30 days ago with others that have gone through grief also. And each one of us, the grief, it was different. Mm. And grief impacts everybody differently. There's no one size fit all for grief. Mm. We don't know how you're going to react once it happened to you. So I was lost. Personally, I was lost. The way I handled my grief, like those 2 years I lived in shock, expecting Ramona to pop around a corner. Well, even in those 2 years, people were doing things as a reminder and to show that they love Ramona also, which impacted me. But at that time, it still wasn't hitting home because I was still in shock. There was times I came to church, and because she sang on the praise team, there were flowers in that seat she sat. I had to watch that. Mm. I had to watch the husband come in. He lived with me for almost a year after she passed. These were the things that helped me to get from point A to point B. I had to choose to come and face reality that this had really happened.
Well, that's a powerful statement you just made right there. You had to make the choice to face the reality. And so many times people have a hard time facing reality and choose almost to live as if nothing did happen. And it's I can't imagine any of you three, the choice that you had to make internally to have to face this and just and deal with it. How about Liz? Same thing as sort of asked Debbie. Last 30 days, you've sort of reflected on some things. Anything popped to your mind looking back on what we discussed last time that really jumps out at you that as you've sort of probably replayed some stuff in your mind last 30
I
days?
really think, I mean, I just think it's, we've already said it, and at the risk of being redundant about it, I feel very strongly to just keep on saying you just can't minimize your grief. That just always is a thing for me, because people have said that so many times to me. Like a friend of mine a while ago's father just walked out the door, and that's nothing compared to what you lost. Well, it's still your loss, and it might be
Still
a
life-changing.
Yeah, it might be a molehill compared to my mountain, but it's still your mountain. So and I just and honestly, after doing it 30 days ago, I feel like I've actually processed my loss more in these last 30 days than, not that I have in the last 17 years, but just I actually feel like it's almost been like a therapeutic thing.
Hey,
Funnily
I'll
enough.
charge you later for the therapy session, man. I'm making money right now. This is awesome. Brother Smith, you made a statement to me that was absolutely staggering to me. After this was all said and done, and John told the story. Here's a man 31 years ago, this tragic event took place. He has probably told his story 1,000 times. And when we did this last time, you said to me, it was almost as if you were hearing it again for the very first time. Over the last 30 days, obviously, this is a routine for you if you've shared this story with so many people. What was it about hearing yourself, and what was it about that sort of what happened last time that made you someone who has probably told his story countless number of times? What was the impact it had for you as you told that?
It was hearing it. Yesterday, my wife had asked me to give my testimony for church yesterday morning, so I did. And as I was doing it, this will relate. I wrote down on my notes on the side, it has to mean something. All this that we've gone through has to mean something. The Bible says God is not mocked. This is no joke. So the impact, when I listened to me, it was though I'm sitting in the audience listening to someone that I've never heard before. I guess because it's just that real. And it can't be imitated, it can't be duplicated. You can't, as I told the church yesterday, it's not like a movie. You go to the movie, the husband finally comes home after he's been away for so long, and the kids out in the yard, and they go running to daddy, and they go meet him and greet him. The wife is in the kitchen, and she looks out the window, she sees him, and tears start running down her eyes, and she goes to the door, and she stands there, and almost in slow motion, they come, and they hug, and they love, and he says, I love you, will you forgive me, I don't know what I was thinking, and she loves him. The credits start to roll, the audience slaps their hands, people have tears. That's not real.
Yeah.
This is extremely real. Dealing with how to live with. I told people, I don't know if I said, when I was burned, I had a mask. And I wore the mask. I wore the mask every day. I slept in the mask. I put the mask on me. I always had a mask on every single day, so you never saw me. But in reality, my greatest mask was the one I wore before my accident, because I didn't want you to see me. So when I put on the mask, it was helping me to heal, but it also hid what I looked like. So I would go to schools, and I would go to college, I'd go to church, and I'd take my mask off. I tell you, I'm taking off my mask so you can see who I am. You put on your mask every day to hide who you are. And the Lord started to heal me, help me to deal with it. He helped me to take off that mask so that he could work in me. and in us. You put on your mask every day because you want people to see an image.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas grief, we can hide behind our grief. But in order for you to heal, you have to take off the mask of grief so you can have joy in the morning, so you can have peace.
Something that really sits as I sit here and listen to all three of you talk. Something that really personally for me, and I don't know how for those of you that are watching, something that really impacts me is though, and I hate to use this word, but I can't think of a better word to use it. The rawness of, you know, we often think if I'm healed, then, you know, I'm just going to smile all the time and I'll never have a bad day again. And all the memories are just going to be so wonderful. But here you are. This is beautiful. 7/18/31. 7 years ago for you, 18 years ago, right, about 18 years ago for your first event, and then 31 for yours. And even now, as beautiful as the healing process as we can see looking at you guys, how wonderful, how much healing it is, there's still stuff there. There's still rawness there. And I think to me, and I know sitting here, it sounds a little easier for me to say this, but I think the encouraging thing for you watching now is some of you feel like if you're not smiling and everything's not perfect, then, you know, what's wrong with me? I got to get over this. But I think you guys are showing that there's almost two sides. There's a healing side, but then there's also another side where you learn how to manage. I hate to say manage the pain, if that's accurate.
I call it endure.
Okay, so maybe you elaborate on that. So there's two sides. There's a healing side. There's definitely the fact you guys have had moments of healing, moments of peace, moments of letting that grief mask go. But then there's another side of it that you still deal with this every day, correct?
Every day. As a matter of fact, dealt with it today. I had a doctor's appointment at 4:30, and I had canceled quite a few appointments. So when the doctor came in, and he says, he calls me Miss Debbie. He said, Miss Debbie, you've canceled quite a few appointments and going on and on. I says, well, yeah, I did. And I says, well, you know, when you're dealing with pain, coming to the doctor is not, it's kind of painful. So he says, well, what kind of pain were you dealing with? So we were talking. Then he asked me about my daughter. And I looked at him and I says, I said, I don't know if today is today. Is the day? And he says, how is your daughter? I says, well, she's been gone for 7 years. I said, she passed away. And he was like, oh my God. He says, how are you handling this? He says, look at you. He says, what can you tell me from this? I said, life is but a vapor. He grabbed my hands and he said, say that again. I said, life is but a vapor. Here today, gone tomorrow. I said, I saw her one Saturday evening, kissed me goodnight. 4 hours later, she was gone. He had tears in his eyes. He said, I've got to call my kids. I need to keep connected. This is the doctor talking to me today. At the end of the visit, he took my hands and said, thank you for sharing that. You have encouraged me. Even though the pain, I can't even describe the pain, but I do have the unction to go on, the unction to take the next step forward. I can endure. What God has done was showed me that I can make and bring a beauty out of this to bless somebody else.
The beauty out of ashes. You still got ashes.
Yes.
The ashes don't go away.
No.
But you can now look at the ashes and see something begin to beautiful. Liz, sort of what Debbie's talking about in your own kind of experience, that two-sided thing where you're definitely healing. You talked about there's the stages where you went through stage. Last time you talked about there was a stage, not a denial, you just not dealing with it. And then as the grief started to pile up, it got to the point where you had to deal with it. But even now, obviously, it was your best friend, your father, your brother, who was a tremendous guy, very close to him, other family members. There's healing, but you're still...
Yeah, and you know, I was telling someone after last month, after listening to you speak, I was like, there's this guy, and it's been 31 years for him, and he lost his entire family. But he has another family now. Like, he has another wife and more kids and grandchildren. But you could still see the loss, and that really impacted me, knowing that, it's okay to still be feeling that way this amount of time later. Like, I think it's just a constant process. Like, it's just, you never really stop processing it.
You said such a beautiful thing there. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, like you said, it's hard. I know, John, you don't like to hear this, but it's so hard for all of us to sit here and those to watch and not compare ourselves to the immense amount of grief and situation you went through. But even that, you said it's hard. I think you might have done it last time on camera, but off camera, I mean, you recounted birthdays, your birthdays, your anniversary birthdays of all the kids. I mean, and every time the calendar 31 years later ticks by, you remember it was this child's birthday or it was my wife's birthday at anniversary. And so 31 years later, your story of healing is just absolutely a miracle only God could do. But there's still levels where you deal with it every day.
I'm going to show you something and I'm not sure if you pick it up, but if you look at me, if you look at this side of my face, it's different from that side. It's totally and completely different. And if I was to be able to fold this side over, you see one aspect. If I was to fold this side over to this side, you see another aspect. They're, in a sense, I can say there are two sides to every person. There's always the side you want people to see. There's always that side that you don't want anybody to know about.
Well, that's true.
And in
everybody
healing,
everybody's
yes.
that.
And then when you're healing, you have to show, you have to unmask both sides. Otherwise, you won't be complete. Healing requires you, it's not really, yes it is, it's not the acceptance of it. Like you said, I don't know a better word, but the reality of it. Don't mask it. Don't make it smaller than what it is. Don't make it more than what it is.
Right.
The reality is this. I told people, I said, when I was burned, that's ground zero. Patty and the girls are gone. That's ground zero. That's the low point. Every spot, every moment from that point on is up. And that's what you do when you heal. You get, if you're laying face down on the ground, you turn over because everything is up. Your direction is up, your focus is up, your perspective is up, the way you perceive things, the way you see things, everything. You start, when your daughter died, it was down ground zero. When your dad died, it was ground zero. Then your sister, your brother, her aunt, and uncle, those are zeros. We add to it. Here a little, there a little, line upon line, here a little, there a little, and you build up your most holy faith day by day, little by little, so that when something does come, when someone does, you see a doctor and he says, "How's your daughter?" I had a friend of mine I played ball in college, said, "How's Patty?" Sent me a message on Facebook, "How's Patty?" He didn't know.
Right, right.
Years later, sometimes people just don't know. And what to say, sometimes just say nothing, smile, and give them a hug.
There's something you guys are saying, and you guys can tell me if I'm making an accurate statement or totally off basis. There's something all three of you have done, some quicker than others, some at different points, but there's a very powerful thing that all of you have done, and that was you made a choice to move forward. It's a choice. Like, we want this, we're waiting for this sort of moment where, I guess maybe those of you that are believers would maybe are waiting for the moment where God's going to somehow give you this supernatural power and shake you, or maybe there's waiting for this moment you're going to wake up one day and the pains are going to be there and you're going to make a choice to move forward. But all of you Talk about 2 years, it was hard. Liz, you talk about when your dad, you're like, I'm not. But then somewhere along the line, it started, maybe not this lightning moment of great, sort of an epiphany where it happened, but you guys all made small and big choices along the way. Is that a correct statement? There was choices you made?
Yes. I had to decide not to get stuck in the bed of anger.
You had to decide. It was a decision.
In the bed of bitterness, stuck in not wanting to go forward, not wanting to live, just get stuck. I wasn't heading anywhere. I wasn't going to be able to accept the support that was there for me if I had gotten stuck.
Can I just stop right there?
Yes.
Some of you watching, you're stuck. And the reason why you're stuck is exactly what she said right now. You're stuck because you're still bitter at God. You're mad at the world. Why'd this have to happen? And all of those emotions have caused you to stop. And then you just said something. People are trying to reach out, trying to help you, but they can't because you're stuck. Get unstuck. I know you look at me and go, well, that's easy for you to say. Get unstuck. You get unstuck. But there's a woman that was dealing with loss. Here's another woman dealing with loss, a man dealing with loss. They chose to get unstuck. You can choose tonight to start your journey and get unstuck. But you're going to have to choose it by letting go of that anger, letting go of that unforgiveness and bitterness towards God, letting go of some things, mad at the world. Why does this have to happen? You'll never get that answer. But you don't have to live that way if you make the choice. Sorry, you just said that. I just got all fired up because I'm thinking, man, there's some people out there that are unstuck, that are stuck. They need to get unstuck because they got to make the choice. So, do you lose your thought? I just got fired up. Sometimes I just get all fired up, forget where I am.
No, I just wanted to make that point about being stuck because some of the things that happened to me during that time, if I had stayed stuck, I wouldn't have been able to be here tonight because I wouldn't be in no shape to be here. I had such a support that was being given to me at that time. I mean, I got cards almost 2 years straight every day, and I actually couldn't even read them. I wasn't in no shape to read the cards, but they were there for a particular time when I chose to move forward. I was able to I had baskets of cards. Liz, you gave me a CD that said, I never lost my hope.
Hope. Yeah,
yes. Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, I remember that actually.
So it's things along the way that God allows to come to help the grieving.
If you choose to not get stuck, get unstuck. If you don't hear anything else we said tonight, there's the word for you tonight. Are you stuck or unstuck? And if you're stuck, get unstuck. Liz, same thing sort of there were choices you made, right? There were some choices. You sort of, and I'm not trying to rehash all we did last time, but just sort of bringing it full circle here before we try to change directions here in a moment. But you talk about you got stuck because you just sort of not dealing with it.
Yes.
But then you realize, man, I'm stuck, so I've got to deal with it to get unstuck.
And I honestly, like I said, in thinking from last time about things, kind of thinking about this past years and how I did process things, and I actually think I was thinking about it in, from my dad to it would have been my brother, sister, and then my brother. And I think because I was so used to compartmentalizing things, I kept doing that, and I would use other things to, I guess, kind of hide from it. I sort of depended on other things, people, for my happiness. And there was a point just, I think it was 4 years ago, that, I mean, I had my kids, and that's just a whole nother shield you can use if you have them, and to not deal with other things because they're pretty encompassing. But I remember sitting in my bedroom, and I was just going through some other things, and completely stripped down, and pretty much the only thing I had left to depend on was God. And that was kind of my turning point there. And it took me, like I said, it was 4 years ago. It took me a really long time. And like I said, I never stopped coming to church, and I never, any
Stop
of that.
believing in
Yes,
God type
I never
thing.
stopped believing God. I never did, and I never. I was angry, but I wouldn't say that I completely processed things, and I was, I guess, stuck in my own way.
Yeah.
And it was just probably about 4 years ago that it was a complete turning point for me. And since then, it's still been a process, but I was pretty stripped down at that point, and I couldn't depend on anyone else,
Yeah,
but God.
I make a statement. So I've made this statement quite a bit. You're never more spiritual than at the moment you're willing to give up. When you're willing to give up, you will never be more spiritual and closer to God at that point when you're willing to give up, because that's when He can be His closest to you. You, John, in so many ways amazed me, but you talked about you started making the choice laying in that bed, the hospital bed. I mean, before you probably, it even sunk in, you're still dealing with your own deal, and you had made the choice by then. I mean, it started there, but obviously the choice of it just continued. I mean,
The choice is always there, and that is probably the key factor to all that we do. This will help many people if they choose it.
choose. It will help you if you choose.
It said, "Choose ye this day what you're going to do. Make up your mind.
Choose. Yeah.
Choose." There was a time my mom had saved the car that had the accident in, and she had it in the backyard. It was covered under tarp, and I'd look at it, and I look at it, and I look at it. One day, he said,
So you actually had the car
Oh my gosh.
that this
Wow.
event took place in
Yeah.
your mother's backyard.
yes.
Woo.
So I looked at it, and one day I
My
said, "Okay,
goodness.
it's time to look at it." So I went to the back, pulled the tarp off, looked at it, saw some things in there that I wasn't expecting to see. I saw Patty's Bible. I saw her purse. I opened the purse, which was burnt completely. I saw her Bible. It was burnt on the outside. Not a single page was burned. The window crank that I turned to wind the window down so that I could walk through the fire was melted into a circle. And as soon as I touched it, it fell apart. You have to choose.
Choose.
Even if you have to walk through fire, you have to choose, because what's on the other side is so much better. You'll never plan a future if you keep plowing up the past.
So can you just say that one more time? So I'm going to hear what he just said. You
It's
can't plant a future.
when you keep plowing up the past. And that's the anchor that holds us and chains us to the memory. As I said, my eyes were burned to such a degree that I never saw their pain. I never saw my pain. I don't have anything in my gallery that I can flip the chart through, to roll back, to pull up an image of pain. It's not there. And because I don't have it, I can't be anchored to it. So choosing to live
Yep.
was never an option. It was always the choice.
Man, you can't plant your future if you're plowing up your past. Boy, there's some things in here tonight. Somebody, please, I'm begging you. You need to hear some of the things that these people are saying, because if you would hear these words that these beautiful people are saying, I believe tonight, I'm not just saying this to make someone feel better, I believe it. Tonight could be a turning point for you in your entire life. Let's kind of change here for the last few minutes really quickly and talk about something that I really wanted to get into last time. We just completely ran out of time. And I think it's very important. We've talked about sort of the impact, the personal impact of grief, how you dealt with grief, how you all have processed that. And obviously your story has helped tremendously. Let's flip the script. Take somebody like me that's never, like I said, I've been through some things, but in nothing that has impacted my life to this degree, like you. And I desire, if I see someone like you, Debbie, has lost her daughter, I want to help. Or Liz, when your situations, I remember, I mean, we grew up together. If you don't know, Liz and I grew up together, and I was very close to her family. I remember where I was when her dad died. I was there when her brother and sister died, so I was very close to her. Obviously, I was there. I came was at the hospital there with Ramona and all that. John, someone like, here I am, here's a guy like you, and I see you, and I want to help. But oftentimes in our attempt to help, we end up probably doing, I hate to say it, but dumb things that end up causing more pain. What were some of the things that people did to you, or did for you, or did with, helped you? What were some things that helped you? Some things that maybe they thought they were helping, but actually didn't help. What were something stick out in your mind? You just mentioned a few minutes ago, people were sending you cards, and even though you didn't read them, it just felt good that new people were thinking about you. That was one thing. But was there anything else that really sticks out at you that a number of years has been a strength to you that others have provided? And has there been something where you knew their intentions were well, but it didn't land well for you?
For the most part, my church family was such a 100% support. And what I can say is people need to allow people to grieve, give them their space in their room to grieve. I only had one person that said to me that it was time to move on. And I actually turned around and said, who are you to tell me when grieving is over? Who says grieving have a limit?
You know who you are. You know who the.
So,
you know who you are. Joking.
When you're talking and you're dealing with somebody,
and you probably know what's sad. They probably thought somehow, some way, they were helping you get past that. But that was not what you wanted to hear, and that did not make you want to get past it.
Nope. So I suggest when you're dealing with, here's another thing, is just sometimes you don't know what to say. And you know why you don't know what to say? Because you don't need to say nothing.
That's so true. Oh,
sometimes you don't need to say nothing.
I remember for years we had a man who was a part of Antioch, and pastor, and a lot of you know him, Steve Rhodes. He was a chaplain for the state police. He was a chaplain for many years for the FBI. In fact, years ago when there was a sniper that was loose in this area, several of the people that the sniper killed, Steve Rhodes was the person that had to go do the death notification to their family, and he made a very powerful statement one time, sort of what you just said. He said they called it the ministry of presence. Mm-hmm. That sometimes in grief, just being just being there is ministry. Yep. We always feel the pressure that being there is not good enough. I got to say the right thing, and just don't say anything at all. Just be there, sit there. Just got to sit there and drink a cup of coffee and not say anything. It's just the ministry of presence.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And get over it. Get over it. Just move. No, Beth. Not the right thing to say.
No.
What is wrong with you? My goodness. Get over this. It's been 30 days. What's wrong with you? Move past it. Liz, obviously multiple different layers here with you. Were there things that people did that had an impact on you that gave you strength? And were there things that people did were like, sort of like Debbie was saying, just like, didn't quite land?
Pretty much you saw what I was going to say, because I was just going to say one of the biggest things is if you don't know what to say, then just don't say anything. I remember, I was 17, and so a lot of my friends were around the same age, and one of my friends said that another one said, I just don't know what to say to her. And she was literally just like, then you don't have to say anything. But also don't stay away. Just because you don't know what to say.
Boy, that's a great statement.
You have to stay away.
If you don't feel like you have something to stay, doesn't mean stay away.
Right.
You can still be there.
Yes. And I don't know if that helped him or not. But, and it's funny because even though I've gone through losses and things, if I know someone who's lost someone, I still don't always know what to say. So
you're not an expert yet? Come on. You're supposed to be an expert.
So
you're supposed to help me.
Right. So I just keep my mouth shut and I give them a hug and say, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And, sometimes that's enough. Just being there, like, you said, sitting together or just your presence is just, I was with some friends. It was after my sister passed away. It was a few months after, and we were just, having like a girls' night or something or whatever. And I don't even remember how the conversation started, but it was the first time I'd really talked about losing Jenny, and they asked me some hard questions, and it wasn't like they were being, nosy or whatever, but it was almost like answering those questions was it helped me to really start processing it a little more. Like just, I can't even remember how the conversation went, but I just remember just completely just spilling it all out. And just because you're talking to someone and they start crying, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing,
Right.
And I know it's awkward and, nobody wants to be around a crier, but I never know what to do when someone's crying. I'm more of like a there kind of person. Like I'm really bad at it.
Look, I can do shadow puppets. Hey, look.
Exactly. I feel like I should know more than that. But
was there something, because was there something that sticks out of you? Obviously, Debbie, said something that really just one of those things where you just don't know where someone's brain is when they say something like that. But was there something, and again, I'm not trying to make a negative thing out of it, but was there things that people did that just...
Oh, yeah. Mostly I remember with my dad, and I think I said something about it last time where one of them said, because of your dad, my husband came to church for the first time in years, or, he was just, maybe he was at a point where if he had lived longer, he wouldn't have been saved or something like that. Just stuff like that where you're just like, I mean, maybe that's true.
But I don't want to hear it.
Now, later, I can think that. I feel like, maybe that could be true. But at that point,
you don't want to hear that.
I certainly didn't want to hear it. And one of my best friends at the time, I remember being in the class because I was a senior in high school when my dad passed away. And she was like, I was so angry one day. And I was saying that to her. And she was like, you should write down everything that the top 10 things that people say that just are the wrong thing to say or just make you so mad. And so I did. And I actually think that was like the start of like journaling things more because that kind of...
Do you still have that? We should have brought that list today. Top 10 things that people said. We could have had like a whole show to that, like a drum roll. And the number one dumb thing someone said to me was...
I actually did just find it because we pulled my Hope chest out of storage. And so, I was going through it and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I think I found that paper and a few others from that period.
Is there anything on that list you remember other than the one that,
he's in a better place. That just seems
that's
to be
something that's
the
a big. I've heard
answer.
that's a huge. I've heard that's a huge one. I don't know if you guys, but they're in a better place now, or
yeah, I know like, he is. But that's not where I want him to be.
Yeah. And the whole thing, sort of what you're saying. Well, I'm glad your husband came to church, but why did God have to take my dad for your husband to come to church? But on the flip side, for someone like me telling that. Like you said, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to make you feel good. Hey, I know you just lost your daughter, but she had such an impact on my life. Well, yes, she did, but right now, that's not what's going to help me get through this moment. I need strength. I need encouragement. I just need you to be there more than I need the stories. Down the road, man. Down the road, we'll talk about. We'll share stories. We'll talk about the memories and talk about the times with Ramona and Paul and Jenny and your dad and the Pathfinders, and I'm a little kid and we're out there in the middle of the woods and John's chasing off the drunk guys who are trying to come in and sleep with us in a cabin. We can talk about that now. You don't want to hear that in the moment.
No.
And I think you have to be able to be sensitive to those around and know the moment. And you know what? When you don't, what do you say? Well, I don't know the moment. If you don't know, then don't say anything. Because if you don't know, it's better to err on the side of just being there. And again, it's not like you guys didn't move past those things. It wasn't like, that was devastating. But it's not, as a person trying to help, I want to know what's the best thing I can do. Because I don't want to, you're dealing with tremendous grief. I don't want to add more grief onto you because I'm doing something that just dumb. So, don't feel like you got to say something. And if you say something, let's not talk about the impact that they had on you. It's just not the time. Down the road, maybe, that could happen. But I don't know if there was a sign you put out. So, okay, I'm ready to talk about the memories. In case you want to talk about my dad, here you go. It's one of those things, right?
Yeah.
You just kind of have to know. But more importantly, just the support. I just come up and give you a hug. I don't have to say, Debbie, I'm just letting you know I've been praying for you all night long. I'm just going to give you a hug. That's support. John, I know you had to have some people that just did some things that really were helping. You got other people who are like,
I'll give you a couple examples of off the wall. My brother and I were going to Stephen H. Adler, something like that, to get some clothes. And it was nighttime. I had on my mask. I had on a plastic mask and jacket. And I'm walking, and the sun and the moon shining hit my face. And the lady was walking with her head down. And when she looked up, she fell to her knees because my face looked like Freddy Krueger. That's just one. Another gentleman said to me, what right do you have to live when you killed your family? Now, those are the two hardest ones.
Wow.
Okay? But then, on the other side of the good things, people would just come up to me. One guy, literally not even that long ago, came to me within the last 2 years, said, John, I didn't know what to say to you. I just want to let you know I was thinking about it, but I just didn't know what to say. And I said, thank you. You didn't have to say anything. One of the greatest things that helped me was just the support of people in church, and even the relationships that got better in my personal parents, brother and sister family, that helped me to get through. And that I was always not quite protected, but accepted, because I looked different. I don't know if you remember me that many years ago.
I do. I was telling I was actually talking to somebody, and I was sharing with them your story, and I said, I remember I was 7 years old about that when this happened, and I remember the first time I saw you in my mind. I still remember as a 7-year-old, came to the camp in Columbia, and you still had the white patches over your eyes. You were still blind.
Surgery done,
yeah, you had just had, and I remember, even to this day, I remember seeing you for the very first time, all the way back that many years ago.
And we have an impact on people. You have an impact. And people have an impact on us. The less you say, the better. The one thing that really helps me the most is when someone asks me, what happened? I don't know anything about you. What happened? And every time I tell someone, it releases that much more.
Yep.
Every time you tell someone else, it releases that much more. It is, you can have a balloon, you can stick a pin in the top, it's going to explode. But if you just slowly release the air from the bottom, you don't damage the heart.
That's really good. That's very
That's
good. Very good. So if I'm correct on this, picking up the couple of key things for those of you that are watching, maybe you have a friend, a coworker, maybe someone in your family is dealing with this, maybe someone in your neighborhood, someone on the job, somewhere you know somebody. I mean, we were just talking about this before we started recording. Within the last 30 days since we did this, we've had the Capitol newspaper shooting in our area where 5 people lost their life at the hands of a gunman. We've had suicides of 2 high-profile celebrities with that did this. Maybe you know somebody that's had a child or somebody that's committed suicide. And I think, to me, the biggest thing that's sticking out to me in this is that when you don't know what to say, don't say anything at all. But don't stay away.
Don't hide. Don't ignore.
That's the thing.
Do not ignore it.
I think that's the biggest. And Liz, you said it, and that really needs to be. So if I don't know what to say, doesn't mean I should stay away because it's awkward, you know. Or another one. I think the other one is sort of, for me, is I don't want to be too presumptuous. Okay, I want to just come over and just sit down with you, but I know you're going through a lot. I don't want to be that. But when I hear about your stories, it's like you just wanted somebody to come by. Not all the time, but there was times you could just use a friend just to sit there, not say anything. Let's just have a cup of coffee together, and there's sort of that both, and it's sort of hard. It's confusing, and you don't really know what. But I think you have to just be able to read the situation, and when you don't know what to say, don't say something if you don't know what to say, because in the process of trying to help that person. I'm trying to help you. Well, you know what, Debbie? You just need to get over it. It's time to move on. That's not the thing to say at that time. Or, Liz or John, man, you're messed. You just look messed up. What happened to all that? How did you survive and your family die? That's not the thing to say. But I think to me, John, for someone like you, is to still treat you like you're a man. You're not look at you like you were. Just get back to just looking at you as John Smith, not the guy scarred. Had an impact on you. The people that treated you like you were normal versus the people that try to treat you like, man, what's up with that guy? That had an impact on you, correct?
Yes. And it's a choice again. Everything here, the bottom line is your choice. What are you going to do? Because it has to mean something. Your daughter meant something. Your family meant something. My family meant something. Them dying is not in vain. It's not wasted.
No, right.
And us being here these last 2 times means
It means
something.
I believe that.
It carries weight. It has gravity. It has. If I real quick with my granddaughter. Liliana Jubilee. She was born April the 20th. She died April the 30th of 2015.
10 days old.
10 days old. And I prayed for her, and I expected her to live. My wife calls me. I get to the hospital. I'm holding her. I'm praying for her. I expect her to live. At the funeral, I go to her casket. I'm touching her. I'm praying for her. I am expecting her to live. There's no doubt in my mind that she wasn't going to wake up. I don't care. They've embalmed her. They did everything. I did not care because I knew and I trusted the Lord. Lily's going to live. Lily's going to live. And our message was when the answer is no, will you still trust the Lord? Will you still love Him? The answer was no. The answer was no. The answer was no. Multiple times. The answer was no. And will you still trust Him? Because if you can trust Him, you can live.
Yes. Yes.
Even though the answer was no. You didn't like it. You didn't want it. I guarantee you, 31 years ago on this date, I did not ask for this. But since I'm here, it has to mean something. It meant something then. It means more now. But it has to mean something.
And I think along that line, something I think is very important for those of you that are watching, it's not up to me to tell you what it means. I think that was sort of, Liz, you've touched on that. It's not for me to say, John, here, you all discovered or are discovering the meaning, but it's coming from you, not because in my attempt to help you, I'm going to tell you, well, this is what it meant. I don't know. I'm not, but so we all feel bad. We're trying to tell this, it wasn't in vain. Here's what it meant. But all the impact that it's had is because you all came to the choice and you have found or are finding the meaning through your own strength and your own connection to God.
Yes.
Not because I'm attempting. So don't attempt to try to justify. God doesn't need you to justify His decisions. Don't feel like you got to defend God. Well, God loves, I know He took your daughter, but He still loves you. Or he took your family, but you don't have to justify God. God is very capable of helping people like this, helping people get through it. Instead of trying to justify God, just help them connect to God. Pray with them. Say, look, can we just pray together? Just let you know I'm praying for you. That's the best thing to do. Don't try to do God's job. He's real good at doing it. You don't need to do His job. So you don't need to do His job. And in this situation, God did His own work in each one of your life. Is still doing His work in each one of life. Doesn't need me to do it.
It's
still
continuing.
Working.
It's a continuum. 31 years of continuation, 18 years. I mean, Liz just said it. Here, 4 years ago, you just added this. It's 14 years of continuation, 7 years of continuation, 31 years of continuation. And it's not my job to do God's job. So, a couple of things to remember. If you don't know what to say, don't say anything at all. Remember, just being there. Don't stay away. If you don't know what to say, don't stay away. Be there. The ministry of presence is a huge thing. And thirdly, don't do God's job. Let God do his job. Don't feel like you got, I got to tell you this because this is what God wanted me to do. No, let God do his job. And if you let that happen, you can be a great blessing to someone who's going through something, and you can actually have an impact in their life. And years down the road, they'll come to you and say, you know what, I just want to let you know, during those periods of time, you really helped me. And you're like, well, what did I do? You just were there for me. You were there. I knew you were there. I knew you were supporting me. You didn't have to say anything at all. So remember, you don't know what to say, don't say anything at all. Don't stay away. I know it's awkward sometimes, we don't know what to do, but don't stay away. And third, let God be God. Let God be God. And then remember, if you're stuck, get unstuck. And if you're going to plant your future, you got to stop plowing up your past. Man, we got some good stuff tonight. So many, if you're on Twitter, you got to just start tweeting this stuff. It's good stuff. This is free Twitter info for you. You can just get your followers boosted with all this good, just real good nuggets of wisdom and things that these beautiful people have shared tonight. So once again, man, it's just been amazing. Part 1 was so good. Tonight, you guys have just absolutely been such a blessing. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, John, for coming, sharing your stories, helping, being, I mean this sincerely, being transparent. I remember several people talked about last time how impacted they were with just your openness and transparency, kind of letting us into your dark places in your life. Thank you for that. I know, and I know it's being cliche, you guys don't know the impact that you're having by people that are watching this. And so thank you for sharing your story tonight. Thank you for taking your time out, being with us. I know you all have busy schedules, but thank you for being here. And I know it has been a major impact for those of you that have been watching. If you've watched tonight, thank you for tuning in. I know if you have tuned in, there's something that has been said that is going to help you now and in the future. If you would take this stuff, and as we've said it 100 times tonight, make the choice to allow this to work in your life, you can see a change in your life starting today. Thank you for tuning in. I pray in Jesus' name that you are blessed. If you didn't go back and watch if you haven't got a chance to see part 1, you need to go back and watch it. Man, you watch part 1, you watch part 2. It's going to challenge you, it's going to help you, and it's going to change your life. Thank you, Antioch West Live. Again, next month in August, we're going to have another great story to share with you, other great things to share with you. So if you're new to us, thank you for tuning in. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening, and I pray in Jesus' name that the impact of these people and the stories that have been shared are going to help change your life through Jesus Christ. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening.